Once you have retrieved the genetic material needed, terminate her.
That makes Omega the sole living source of Fett's raw genetic material.
I don't want to end up an experiment in a tube.
That's not gonna happen.
That was another really good episode. I mean, this show continues to they're advancing the story very quickly now, which is great. I mean, I had no problem with the slow burns as we were building, but you're really starting to see things pick up. You're really starting to see things things are in fast forward now. Like, things are really moving forward. We're learning more about Omega. We got confirmation on something that I know I kind of hinted at in the past. I've seen other people talking about it. Omega is officially a 100% unaltered clone of Jango Fett, just like Boba was, which makes her very valuable to Kamino. And it's very interesting because you're even starting to see a rift between the Kaminoans, and that's very interesting because, again, stakes have been raised with what the Empire is doing. They know that their way of life is potentially in danger because of, hey, you know, we don't need clone troopers anymore. You guys are basically done, because they're going with stormtroopers. And I get the assumption that they need Omega to build an army. That's kind of where my thoughts going with that. Or is Kamino somehow, and this is where things get a little, I don't know how everyone's going to feel about this, but I have no problems with it as long as the storytelling makes sense and it lines up. Connective tissue between all the pieces of content, I'm good with it as long as it syncs up and it makes sense. How is this going to play into Palpatine? Because we've seen it in The Mandalorian, and I'm wondering if this is like the beginning stages of that project, or is this the beginning stages of what we saw in The Rise of Skywalker with Palpatine and his ultimate plan of what he had built. I think it's easily one of those two things, and again, it would be interesting to see if they do tell some connective tissue storytelling to kind of explain the Rise of Skywalker stuff a little bit more, and they're going to use the Bad Batch to do it, or is this going to be like the beginning of what we see in The Mandalorian with the whole Grogu project? I don't know. I'm good with both because, again, the folks that are running this show, they understand Star Wars. They know how to tell stories without really making things sound and seem confusing. They have done a great job of including so many different characters from outside this main story and from so many different pieces of content from the movies and the animated shows and everything else. And it's all worked and made sense, very much just like in The Mandalorian, because, you know, they know what they're doing. They know how to tell a story, and they know how to make things line up and make sense, which is exactly why I'm not that concerned if they are going to try to tell more story with what happened with Palpatine and the Rise of Skywalker and how he came back and that whole thing. And then, yeah, I definitely feel like we're getting a conflict. I don't know how we're going to get there if they don't get Omega back, but it definitely feels like there's a conflict brewing between Kamino and the Empire, something we've been talking about probably for a few weeks now. They definitely feel like there's a sense of urgency. Their way of life is in danger. The Empire is building and growing and getting strong, and they don't need them. And without Omega, I feel like they want Omega to build an army. I feel like that's the ultimate goal. Get the DNA out of Omega and start transferring it into more clones, because it feels like they still got a fully functional operation. They just need the proper stuff to get clones and things created. So I think this is fascinating. I think it's really interesting. I'm digging that story. If that's where they're going, I'm good with it. I'm good. I'm not going to criticize it yet. I got to see it play out, of course. But yeah, I'm really digging that aspect. When Omega walked into the room and saw those tubes, I was like, it immediately hit me. It's just like what we saw in The Rise of Skywalker. It's just like the stuff that we saw in The Mandalorian. So yeah, it definitely feels like they're going in one of those two ways. And because of the timeline, I'm going to assume that it has to deal with Palpatine. We're still many, many years away from the events on The Mandalorian. So the fact that Palpatine's in power, he probably is maybe trying to come up with a backup plan if something were to ever happen to him, unless he foresees his own end, which is very possible also, because these really powerful Force users do have the ability to look into the future and see things. I don't know. I think it's all very interesting, but regardless, I'm digging this show. I am loving this show. I think the Bad Batch has been absolutely fantastic. Getting to see Cad Bane more is awesome. His fight with Fennec was a lot of fun. Fennec is really bad. Like, she's a bad-ass bounty hunter, and she's obviously still very young. I'm wondering if we're going to at some point see her paths cross with a certain someone that we see in The Mandalorian, because, you know, Boba Fett was mentioned in this episode. So the idea that we got more Jango Fett, Boba Fett mentions, I mean, we've seen everyone else. Why not include Boba Fett and kind of see that relationship with Boba and Fennec kind of start? It's got to start somewhere. Makes sense for them to start it in the Bad Batch now that we've got Fennec. So yeah, it's all really good. I really love the relationship with Hunter and Omega, the Bad Batch with Omega. They love her, and they know how important she is. And man, having someone like Tech around is fantastic, because this dude could literally find information about anything. He is so smart. He is so good at what he does. It's pretty incredible. And Omega just continues to show very heightened levels of being able to do anything. She just goes into a room that she's never been in before, starts pushing buttons, and she figures shit out. It's very interesting. Again, bring up the whole idea that I talked about in the open. Like, she's not enhanced clone. We got that confirmation. She's just a pure clone of Jango. Does that mean that there is force ability in her? Is that kind of the secret that they're withholding from us? That there's a little bit of force in her? Got that, you know, M count going? I don't know. I wonder if that's the big secret, because the confirmation is that she's just like Boba Fett, an unenhanced, unaltered, just pure clone of Jango. So I'm wondering if there is some kind of force or something else that's going on here, because she is really, really good at picking things up fast. She handles problems with no issue at all, and she finds her way out of really difficult spots. She got off a Cad Bane ship with really no resistance, almost, it seemed like. So I'm wondering if that's where we're going with her story. But yeah, I'm digging it. That was another great episode. We are past the halfway point now of this series, and I just can't wait to see where they go. Keep talking about it, the time zone that we're in, and just the possibilities of where this crew can go and who else they could possibly run into. It's endless. There's so many possibilities, and I can't wait to see where they go with this show. And yeah, I'm really excited. I thought that was a fantastic episode, but of course, leave your comments down below. What did you think of that? Hope y'all have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye.